Spursy freaking Spurs, man. That was the Spursiest game I've seen in a long time. Plenty to talk about. Almost all bad, unfortunately. Spurs got beat 3-1 to Sheffield United, newly promoted Sheffield. A lot of talking points. First, I gotta say, congrats to Sheffield. It's nothing that happened was their fault. They just played the game. They're a great team. Their coach Wilder is unbelievable. Has done an unbelievable job this season for them. And I love their formation. I love the way they play with their overlapping center backs. It's a unique style I don't think I've seen before. It just works for them. He knows how to get the best out of his players. I like Sheffield. They're a good team to watch. They're a fun team to watch, and especially when you realize that they're playing with such a small budget compared to a team like Spurs. And they played us off the park in that second half. It makes it more frustrating for a Spurs fan, but I just gotta say, shout out to Sheffield. They're a good team, and they just played the game that was in front of them, so no hard feelings toward them. But Spurs, man, first half. Again, the lineup, very attacking from Mourinho. They had Lucas, Bergwijn, Son, Kane. That's almost four forwards, pretty much. I figured we were going to play a 4-4-2 with that lineup, but it ended up being more of a diamond in midfield, which I got to ask, if we're going to play a diamond, how does Dele not get in the team? Because he has experience playing it. We used to play a diamond under Poch sometimes, and he was the focal point of that diamond. So how he doesn't start, I'm not sure. I'm not Mourinho, I'm not the coach. He knows way more than I do, but that was my first question when I saw that we moved into a diamond type of formation. First half, we started well, I thought. We were passing the ball well. Never really had that final ball. Unfortunately, that final ball to Kane or the final cross was never there throughout the entire game. But the midfield passing was good. The tempo was good. They barely created a chance until their first goal, which they took well. They took all their chances well, Sheffield, put us to the sword. First goal was, they passed it wonderfully. The overlapping center back plays it back for the midfielder, who takes a touch out of his feet. Lo Celso a little slow to close him down, and he buried it bottom left. Lloris couldn't do much. And then, right after that was the big controversy. We bounce right back. Lucas gets the ball off a header from Harry Kane, attacks the defense, has 4 guys surrounding him. A man from behind him pushes him over. He falls forward onto his face, and he puts his arms out to brace himself, and a Sheffield defender kicks the ball into this upper part of his arm. I don't know if you could, right around this area. Kicks the ball into that area of his arm, and it bounces out for Kane, who finishes wonderfully, I have to say. Great finish from Harry Kane. But of course, you guys saw the game. Rolled out for a handball. I saw on Twitter even Chelsea fans were saying, some Chelsea fans, I'm sure not all, but some Chelsea fans were saying they couldn't believe that call. It seemed like across the board, everybody was saying how that call was just completely absurd. It'd be one thing if they called that from the start a handball and then they upheld their decision. But there's a thing in American sports, I don't know for your England fans or international fans, when American football or college football, they have a rule called conclusive evidence. And what that means is if there's a call, an original call, that they need conclusive evidence to overturn that call, which means you have to be 100% certain to overturn a call. Otherwise, if you're not 100% certain, then you leave the call the way it was on the field. And I don't know how. I think that rule needs to be implemented into the Premier League, because if you make a call that 90 to 95% of fans, no matter what club they support, disagree with, I don't even know how to say it. How is that fair? I guess is what I'm trying to say. How is that fair? Even rival teams are agreeing with us that call was ridiculous. I don't know what they can do looking back on it, whether the FA can step in, maybe fine Michael Oliver, who was the VAR referee in the booth. I don't think it was the ref on the field. I don't think it was, he just has to listen to Oliver or whoever is in the booth that day. And, he doesn't get the replays from the different angles. He's just listening to it in his ear. He has to go with the decision that he makes, the booth makes. So, it comes down to Michael Oliver, the VAR referee that day. Completely got it wrong. There are a couple things, like, first of all, he gets fouled. So, Lucas gets fouled. That's the only reason he goes down in the first place. Second of all, he wasn't even looking at the ball when it hits him in the arm. Third of all, the ball gets kicked into his arm from literally inches away. So even if he wanted to get out of the way, he couldn't. So that's three very important things to look at. All very questionable. According to Michael Oliver, all three went in the favor of Sheffield. Even if one of those things were legit, which I think all three were legit, but even if one of those things are legit, how can you overturn a goal that was ruled a goal on the field? So I really don't understand that. That was the worst VAR decision I've seen yet, and I've seen some terrible ones. And I know Spurs got lucky last year going to they wouldn't have went to the Champions League final if it wasn't for a very tight decision with that Sterling goal last year against Man City. But ever since then, man, we've had probably the worst VAR luck in terms of, the Liverpool game. Robertson puts in a terrible tackle. They don't even look at it for a red card. Speaking of that, just minutes later, this got me almost more angry than the goal, but Norwood was on a yellow card, and then just 5 or 10 minutes after that overturned Harry Kane goal, the ball goes up in the air. Son's looking up. He's trying to head the ball, trying to locate the ball so he can head it. While he's looking up, Norwood tracks where Son is and comes by, gives him the elbow to the face. He never looked at. He did look at the ball once, and then he had eyes for Son and just came right at him, gave him that elbow to the face. I've seen that given so many times. That's borderline a red card. I've seen red cards given for that. And the fact that they didn't even spend a minute to look at that after what they did, the controversial call for the handball, to not even look at that for 30 seconds to check that, that's in my mind, that's at least a yellow card. 9 out of 10 times that's going to be a yellow card. And that would have been a second yellow, and they would have been down to 10. Again, it's a different game. So that's two critical moments in that game that could have swung our way that didn't. I thought we dominated the first half, but then ever since those two decisions went against us, our players, just, I don't know what happened at halftime, but something Mourinho said didn't gel with the players, I think. And that was a completely different team in the second half. They seemed completely disinterested. Defenders switched off for the second goal and the third goal. Eric Dyer was nowhere. Eric Dyer's positional awareness for those two last goals was astonishing, honestly. I think it was the second goal that they scored, but he had Mousset, was it, that scored right behind him. I didn't even see him turn his head once to check where Mousset was. And that's our big, strong center back who's not the quickest. So if you're not the quickest already, you have to have great defensive and positional awareness. So to not even check over your shoulder to see where Mousset is in that situation, Mourinho's going to have a field day with Dyer. And I hate to say this because I love Eric Dyer. I've loved him since he scored his debut goal against West Ham. That's one of my favorite Spurs goals. So ever since that day, I've loved Eric Dyer, even though people like to slag him off. But I'm at the end of my rope with him. I think we need to cut our losses because time and time again, he makes, he just switches off. And we can't have players that switch off. Most of our defense switches off time and time again. We have Yan and Toby on the bench, seasoned veterans. Even they switch off now. So I don't know what's going on with the defense. Yeah, just terrible, terrible game. Reminded me, I had almost the same feeling after watching that game as I did when we played Newcastle on the final day of the season and got beat, 5-1. Had a similar feeling to that game. Just seems like the players quit on themselves and quit on the fans toward the end of that game. I'm not going to fault the attack too much because they did try, and Sheffield are an incredible defending team. They love to defend those crosses into the box, and that's all we seemed to have going for us was our fullbacks crossing, which first of all, our fullbacks can't cross. Second of all, that plays right into Sheffield's hands. I felt bad for Kane, who put the ball in the net 4 times and only could score 1 goal. I'm not going to fault Kane for that. He just doesn't have the service. I mean, imagine him on Man City. All those easy tap-ins that Aguero gets every year. He would. There's no doubt in my mind if he played for Man City, he'd be scoring 30 goals easy every year. So I just feel bad for Kane in that sense, that we don't have a team that can provide him consistent service to score on, because it's hard enough to be a striker, to put the ball in the back of the net consistently, even when you're getting all those chances. But he has to thrive on 1 to maybe 2 chances a game, and he still is able to squeeze in 1 goal a game, which is, he's such a good player for us. So I'm never going to slag off Harry Kane. All right, here we go. Player ratings. First up, Lloris. We conceded 3 goals. Really, he couldn't do much for any of those 3 goals. First one possibly was savable, but it would have been a 10 out of 10 save if he made the save. So, I'm not going to go too hard on him. I'm just going to give him a 6. Davies, man, just so many times with the ball, we were crying out for, a fullback who can cross, and Davies can just not. I've watched him play for 5 years now. His crossing has gotten worse, honestly. Not just his ability to bend a ball into the box, but his decision-making of what types of crosses to put into the box at what times, which I know is hard. It's hard to react that quickly. It's easy for me to sit here and pick out, what types of crosses to put in from the box from my couch. But he gets it wrong almost every time. So, switched off at the back a couple times. I'm going to have to give him a 3. We need to upgrade left back. He's average, and I don't think he's good enough for Spurs. If we're going to try to reach, Champions League next season, it's looking harder and harder by the game. We're just falling so far back. We're tied up. We're level on points with Burnley after 33, 34 games. It's disgraceful. I saw a tweet that said we're the 8th richest club in the world, but we're 9th in the Premier League. So I'm just let that sink in for you. Sanchez, honestly, the only player I think we should keep going forward in our defense. We got Tanganga coming through. Hopefully we can sign Min Jae Kim. Looks like a good player. But even Sanchez had a poor game today. I like to see his passion toward the end. He was clearly upset with the way things were going. But I cannot give him higher than a 4. When you let Sheffield score 3 goals against you after, I believe they didn't score a goal their last 2 games, and then we have Spurs come in and they score 3. Pretty easy goals, all 3 of them, you have to say. It's not like they were bangers from outside the box. 2 of them were from inside the 6-yard box. That's just terrible defending. Dyer, my mans. I've already spoke about Dyer. I'm going to give him a 2. In the first half, I was thinking to myself, he was pinging the ball around pretty nicely. But again, if you can't defend, then you can't be a center back. And he can't play in midfield. He can't be a center back. He can't be a right back. He's too slow. So we just have to get rid of him. He's not good enough. And like I said, I love Eric Dyer. I love his passion. I love the way he plays the game when he's playing well. But he just hasn't played well for years now. And part of that's not his fault. I know he's had his injury problems and he's had his problems with illness as well. So I feel for the guy, I do. But he's, again, not good enough for Spurs if we're aiming for that Champions League spot. We need a complete overhaul in our defense. Which brings me to Aurier. Same problems as Dyer. It's just switches off. At times, maybe once or twice a game, you'll think, oh, maybe Aurier's turned the corner. And then, he'll do some Aurier things. And again, plenty of times where he got the ball, we needed a nice cross, and he couldn't deliver. So, 3. Maybe he's good enough to be a backup for us, but even then, we got play the kids at this point. Sissoko, I gotta say, even though he was playing CDM for us, I thought Sissoko is so important for us. He's almost playing that Dembele role, and time again he covers ground for all four of the defenders back there. He saves them so many times, especially on counterattacks. Amazing work rate. His passing range does let him down at times, but I can't give Sissoko anything less than a 6 because he worked his butt off. Lo Celso, not his best game for us. I think he's been our best player this season, Lo Celso. And again, I like to see his passion toward the end of the game, even though got a little too feisty maybe. But it just didn't happen for him passing wise. Couldn't create too many opportunities. I'm gonna have to give him a 5. Moving on to Son. Poor game from Son. He's had a poor stretch of games here since the restart. I honestly think Mourinho does not know how to get the best out of Son. He's playing so far back. He doesn't get anywhere near the box, or when he does, it seems to be on the wings. And when Son's at his best, he gets the ball wide and he beats a man and puts a cross into the box, or cuts inside and takes a shot. And I don't know what the deal is, but he hasn't been able to create those chances that he usually creates when he's so dangerous. Whether that's tactics or a message he's getting from Mourinho, I'm not sure, but definitely whatever system we're playing, it's not getting the best out of our boy Son. So another poor game from him. I'm gonna have to give him a 4. But I'm gonna move over to Lucas. Lucas is such an odd player to rate because he tries his hardest. He's able to beat players time and time again, but his decision making in the final third is poor, I have to say. There's times where he should pass, but he shoots. There's times when he shoots, but he should pass. He reminds me of Aaron Lennon a little bit in that way. Maybe Aaron Lennon had better decision making in the final third, honestly. I'm gonna have to give Lucas a 4 as well. Moving on to Bergwijn. I sent a tweet out at Spursy Spurs on Twitter. I put a tweet out talking about Bergwijn. He has adapted to the Premier League just about as quick as I've seen. But man, Bergwijn is definitely a bright spot, and he has a big future ahead of him. I could tell. Played very well the first half, faded away in the second half, just like the whole team did, it seemed. But did a lot of good things. Was our best player in the first half. I'm gonna give him a 6. It's hard to get more than a 6 with the way the team performed and the result that we got. Finally, the big man has a Kane. Kane put the ball in the net 4 times, only scored once. I talked about him before the player ratings. Gets almost no service, and it's got to be incredibly frustrating. Time and time again, he would have a defender pinned on his back, and Sissoko or it was Lo Celso or Ndombele when he came on, Lamela, they just couldn't get the ball to his feet, or they were pinging it in way too hard. Kane's at his best when he's got his back to goal. I think that's where he plays his best in terms of linking players up. He did score a goal. He took his goal nicely. I'm going to give him a 6 as well. Actually, no. Scratch that. I'm going to give him a 7. I think he was our man of the match, Harry Kane. Say what you will. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. These are my ratings. I'm not going to rate the substitutes. Yeah, guys, rough game. It's deflating after the terrible season we've had. We get to this point where there's, final stretch of games. We have a fully fit squad, and we lay an egg against a newly promoted team. And just the way we did it, where we just mentally capitulated at the end, it's tough to see, considering we win that game. We're 6 points behind Chelsea, and we could still get a Champions League spot after the terrible season we've had. But now I think it's gone. I think Europa League is gone as well. There's just too many teams in between us and those spots. And, maybe this will be a wake-up call to Daniel Levy, who will finally spend some in the summer, or maybe it'll backfire on us and we'll, spiral out of control like the scum that also seem to be spiraling out of control. And the only thing that can really save any face at this point is that we beat Arsenal coming up. I think we play them in a couple weeks. That's all I hope for now, is that we beat Arsenal. I hope we play some kids. I hope we see Parrott maybe or Sirkin at left back. Yeah. Tough. Come on, you Spurs.